Alright, so just over a month ago, I released a video called Diablo IV Isn't What You Think It Is. And in this video, I covered many of the concerns that the community had about Diablo IV before its beta release. This was my first big hit as a content creator. It's over 200,000 views, and for somebody that's as small as I am, it's a pretty big deal. And one of the things that I learned from this video was that I really shouldn't read too many comments. No, not because they're going to hurt your feelings, but because they can cause seizures and permanent brain damage. If this is your first time to Legendary Drops, welcome. My name is Ian. I like to talk about RPGs and MMOs. I try to maintain a relatively balanced, introspective, and optimistic look when I'm talking about the various topics around games that I love. About a month ago, I made a video where I provided evidence to support my claims that the Diablo community was being overly pessimistic and skeptical around the release of Diablo IV. Now that we've all had the chance to see more content on the game, I've been able to develop my own impressions of the game. You've been able to either play the game or watch somebody else play it. I felt it was time to come back and tackle this topic once again. I want to disperse this cloud of negativity around the game and probably piss some people off. First, I would like to address what I believe is a seizure-inducing comment. It's a common accusation that I see sent towards content creators and just about anybody that has a positive view on Diablo IV for being a paid actor, a shill, or just a genuinely bad person for showing any interest in a Blizzard product. I disregard these takes. It's sheepish behavior. You have no actual opinion. Comments like those are not only unintelligent, but they show an inability to engage with the topic and have a constructive debate. It's no different than being in a Modern Warfare 2 lobby. Somebody drops a solid diss on you, and the only thing you can come back with is your mom. It's the guy that sees everybody saying happy birthday to someone, and they walk up and say, now you're 1 year closer to dying. I'm not saying you aren't allowed to dislike or criticize the game. You vote with your dollar just as much as anyone else. However, luckily, looking at the consensus, you're being outvoted. And for good reason.
Woo! Oh, I'm gonna have a honey bun, boys.
For me, every game is judged on its merits, not on its developer. I recognize that this doesn't apply for everyone. I believe that I can disagree with the actions and the controversies with Blizzard, but still be excited or hopeful for games that they can produce. I don't believe in ethical consumerism. Every person watching this video owns or continually supports products that are potentially made under unethical circumstances. If you dig deep enough, I'm sure someone on Twitter can find something that someone did 10 years ago behind the dumpster at a Wendy's. Does that make any excuse for the actions of that company? No, it does not. Does it immediately make you a bad person or mean you support their poor practices because you're engaging with their products? No. It does not. We compromise our morals every day to fulfill our needs and wants. It is what it is. I want companies to be ethical. I want everyone to be treated equally. I want people to be held accountable. I would rather Blizzard have a different CEO. However, I think I can hold those opinions and still enjoy a good game. I can even praise a good game when it's good. Why? Because while there are venomous snakes in the upper management of many of our favorite game developers, there are also hardworking, passionate developers that are underneath them that genuinely want to bring you and I the best game that they can possibly make. Continuing on with the theme of trust, I would like to tackle the accusations or implications of Diablo Immortal in the criticisms of Diablo IV. I get it. You feel burned. Blizzard burned you. You, for some odd reason, thought that a mobile game wasn't going to be pay to win. I still say today that if Blizzard didn't announce Diablo Immortal at BlizzCon, I don't even think it would even have been newsworthy. Beyond that, they didn't even have any plans for a PC port. The community is the reason why we got a PC port. I don't understand why people believe that this is something that is just confined to Blizzard. Every single AAA developer across the board that has any type of noteworthy IP has a mobile game with predatory microtransactions to make sure that they can milk every single dollar out of every single person that is terrible with their money. Personally, I disregarded the game the moment that it was announced. And it's not anything unique to Blizzard. This is just how all mobile games are. The only thing unique was the way that they announced it. They targeted their core audience. They targeted the Diablo community. It was arrogant, ignorant, and it severely damaged their reputation. However, Diablo Immortal only shares a name with Diablo IV. Outside of that, these two games have nothing to do with one another. If you're one of those people who are genuinely hesitant to play Diablo IV because you think it's going to become Diablo Immortal, or maybe you're one of those people that are on Twitter or in the comment section on YouTube or spamming in Asmongold's chat saying, "Keck W, this game's going to be pay to win, just wait," you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how the economics behind video games work and just how players interact with microtransactions on various platforms. As it stands, pay to win thrives on mobile, but it typically dies in premium. Now, I'm not saying the developers haven't tried, nor that they won't try again in the future, or that maybe even some of them have actually been successful. But what I am saying is that typically when they do try it, it doesn't work. And Blizzard knows this. Gamers engage with mobile and premium titles in completely different ways. I think the best example is the difference in value proposition and barriers to entry. If we take a game like Path of Exile, and it started selling player power, items, gems, or levels, it wouldn't have the player base it has today, nor would they be able to make nearly as much money as they do off of cosmetic microtransactions. Why? Because we value our time differently depending on the games we are engaging with and where we're engaging with those games. We want to farm ARPGs. We want to grind levels and items. We want to enjoy the repetition. Removing that through pay for power removes the value of the game and limits its ability to reach a wider audience. Now, let's add that same scenario to a game that's charging a premium price that isn't free to play, and you see a title that is actively turning away players from playing it. Think about it realistically just for a moment. If Blizzard introduces pay for power, what would happen to Diablo IV? Would it thrive? No, it would die. Which brings me to the barrier for entry. See, typically in the Western world, we don't use mobile as our primary means of gaming. Mobile gaming for us is always in short bursts. It's when we're on the toilet or when we're at work. Also on the toilet. Everybody has a cell phone. However, premium titles have various barriers to entry. Think about it. You have to have a TV or a monitor, a console or a PC, a reliable internet connection to download, install, and even play the games that you want to play. On top of that, you actually have to have the money to invest to even buy a new title in the first place. The investment to play premium titles is so much higher, and as such, when we purchase games, we're hoping that they're going to return our time for investment. We want to play these games for 2, 3, 5, 10 hours at a time in one sitting. We want to put 30, 40, 80, 100, thousands of hours into a title. And paying microtransactions to decrease that investment actively undermines why we purchased the game in the first place. Now, you could say, but Ian, what about sports games? And you're right. Pay for power mechanics do work in sports games, but that's both a product of sports games fan culture and the amount of time that those people invest in playing those games. They play it in short bursts, a lot like mobile gamers do. I would love to dive into sports games and their microtransactions, but I feel like that's kind of for a different video. If you guys would actually like to hear me discuss that in the future, just drop a comment down below. Ultimately, these are my theories and opinions. I'm sure that they are shared by financial experts at game studios, or at least considered before putting predatory microtransactions into a game.
Yeah, boy.
To put it simply, it's easier for people to find value in spending $2, $3, $10, or even $50 on a mobile game in short bursts because they're only playing it for a limited amount of time. And they're not only just limited by real life, but they're also limited by the game itself, where they have these time walls in place to keep you from making progress. That transaction makes less sense to a user when considering the value and investment of playing premium titles. Blizzard likes making money. They want to make it the smart way. In Diablo IV, we want to get stronger on our own because that's the core gameplay loop. Now, looking cool, that's a different story. There's money in looking cool. The only pay for power transaction that I could see eventually making its way into Diablo is faster mount speeds. And even that's a stretch given the size of the game's map and the availability of teleporting. Now, I'd like to take a moment to talk about some of the major changes that we've seen come to Diablo. And it's some of the things that, to be honest with you, I share similar sentiments on. I get why people are upset. I understand that you don't like the always online, and I understand that some people don't like the live service model. But you gotta understand, Blizzard right now is doing what Blizzard always has done best. They're stealing from other games and trying to make sure that this title appeals to a much larger audience than it ever has before. And for the most part, they're succeeding in doing so. See, I hate to have to do this to you, but sit down. We're getting older. And we don't have the time to play games like we used to. And because of that, Blizzard and other developers realize that they can't just appeal to their normal target audience anymore. They've got to widen the scope. Even though we're the ones that put them where they are, they don't want the fans of Diablo 1 and 2. They want the kids playing the Fortnites. They want the kids that grew up on Destiny. And that's what these live service models are for. It's for the longevity of the franchise. They don't want the neckbeards. They want the Zoomers and the Coomers and everything else under the sun. It's just kind of the way that it is. I mean, I do kind of find it odd that we keep criticizing Blizzard and Diablo 4 for being a live service title, while also in the same breath constantly comparing it to Path of Exile, a live service title. So speaking of Path of Exile, we should talk about the competition. Diablo 4 is not actively trying to compete with any ARPG, and especially Path of Exile. I would argue that they're not even trying to target any of PoE's audience. While we don't know exactly what Diablo 4's endgame is going to play like, we can already see initially that it doesn't seem to have the same kind of depth planned that Path of Exile does. And I think that's on purpose. We see the simplistic design in their stats and their skill trees, and even on the equipment and itemization. It's all built for a broad audience. Yes, there is some markings for some decent diversity in builds and styles. However, Diablo 4 isn't aiming to be this mega mind, gigabrain, 100 intelligence, 5,000 IQ game that Path of Exile has become. Diablo 4 won't have 30 or 3-hour leveling guides and build videos. It's built in a way so that Ted, who just got off of work at Lowe's, can come home, he can put his kids in bed, he can sit back on his lazy boy, crack a beer, hop on his barbarian, and just whirlwind through dungeons. It's 100% fine for us hardcore players to take issue with that, us fans of the franchise to dislike it. However, I think it's entirely different when we start saying it's poor game design, or we write it off as a bad game when it's purposefully designed to be palatable for a larger audience. Diablo 4 doesn't need to kill Path of Exile. It doesn't need to include the creative mechanics of Last Epoch. It just needs to find its own place and develop its own community. And I think it's going to do that just fine. Now, I'm not saying that Diablo 4 is going to fail fans of the franchise. Really, dude? As someone who loves Diablo, I'm genuinely having a great time playing the game. And I think there's some things that are going to go away. I think there's some things that are going to get fixed. I definitely believe that like elemental resistances are probably not going to last very long, as it's just a system that doesn't really seem good for a broad audience. But when I see things like that, it actually gives me hope for the future of the game. That means that there's still uber nerds that work at Blizzard that think things like farming multiple sets to fight for different dungeons, like old school World of Warcraft, are cool. that kind of gives me hope that as we get more exposed to the end game systems of this game, things get better and better, and Blizzard sees how the players interact with these things and improve them over time. Graphically, the game is gorgeous. The Vista points are awesome. Each class feels fun to play except for Barbarian. The voice acting is absolutely superb. The music is great, the sound design is spot on, and the story so far is pretty decent. Diablo IV has the foundation, the framework, to not only be critically, but commercially successful. Beyond that, due to that strong foundation, the game holds serious potential to become a mainstay in the ARPG community, something with far more replayability than, say, Diablo III after Reaper of Souls. I think there are a ton of valid criticisms to levy at Diablo IV, and it's important to discuss all of the issues that we have, especially the things like repetitive dungeon design or concerns about itemization. However, I think in the same breath, we can also respect the game for what it is. A solid game. Blizzard has been doing really well with Dragonflight, and it seems like some of those lessons learned have been starting to be applied to Diablo IV and maybe even hopefully some of their other products. Please bring back Heroes of the Storm. If Blizzard mistreats their employees or makes a bad game, we should call them out. If Blizzard makes a good game, it's okay to say it's a good game. I think there are a ton of valid criticisms to send towards Diablo IV, especially with the repetitive dungeon design and some of the issues with itemization. However, at the same time, I think we can respect the game for what it is. A solid game. I think that we should be able to call out Blizzard for the mistakes that they make, whether it's their mistreating of employees or just poor practices as a business. But I think it's also important that when they make a good game, that we can say it's a good game. Diablo IV, it's a good game. Anyway, I thank you guys for watching the video. There's been an insane amount of people that have been joining the channel lately, which has been a bit on the overwhelming side, to be honest with you. I try to make sure that I stay varied in content. I don't really want to get just holed up in one game. I do plan on making more Diablo IV content because it's probably going to become a mainstay game that I play quite often. I will stream it quite a lot as well. But I just really don't want to get myself holed up in one game. Like Blizzard, I want to appeal to a broader audience. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys ever want to hear me cover any type of topics like this around other games, or just want to hear my thoughts on anything else, hop down in the comments. I'm always listening. See you guys next time. The cat's laying down over there. Here, I'll show you. Say bye.